Okay, so I've got Brandon Dixon with me today. Thank you for taking the time. Looking over your shoulder, I can see a little hint of what is Montana, Whitefish there. The sun is shining there and a little bit less here where I'm at. So thanks for joining me today, Brandon. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You are the leader right now of our employment committee, so thanks again for serving in that way, and appreciate you very much for supporting me and what we do with career services in the Pacific Northwest section. So I'm going to do my usual first off question to sort of tee it up, get us on the runway here. What's the sort of scoop on how did Brandon Dixon become, hooked on golf? Maybe what's the story there?
Yeah. So I played a lot of sports growing up. None of which were golf. I was just a sports nerd. I come from especially my dad's side of the family is a very sports driven side of the family. So when I was 7, I guess I mentioned something along the way of an interest in playing golf, and neither of my parents played, but all 4 of my grandparents played. And so I was the only grandchild to express an interest in golf. So it was like, just latch onto the kid and see what we can do. So separately, one would take me to the lake and hit balls in the lake. The other would take me to the park where they lived. And so it just became this thing. And it was one of many sports for a while. Fast forward, I probably got more into it at about 14. I'm originally from Canada and had an opportunity to go live in the province of Newfoundland, way northeast Canada. And kind of like Montana, you're outdoorsy a lot in the summer because it's about 15 minutes long, so you have to take advantage of it. We would go fish a lot, and then my dad was into golf by then a lot, so we started playing a lot more golf and just met a friend group that was into golf and got hooked from there. So funny enough, it probably became more of a social team feeling thing, even though it was in an individual sport. So that's where the hook really became something. And I think of those days very fondly. And in many ways, a lot about what happens here in Montana has similar feeling to Canada and the values and the things we want to do with our day. And so, yeah, kind of cool to be back home in some ways.
I was, in some ways, maybe I was thinking that was like you kind of created your own version of PGA Junior League almost.
We did.
The 17U Junior League, but it was just, no, you didn't have jerseys, but it was as much about the social and team aspect and the laughs in and around golf shots.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we kept each other honest. Not the rules of the game, that kind of comes naturally, but we kept each other honest just in life and etiquette and behavior, and don't get too far ahead of yourself if you hit a good golf shot. Don't get too down on yourself if you don't, things like that. So we know golf is such a great way to learn life. And that certainly was the case for me.
Have you kept in touch with any of those teenage friends?
Yeah, so my best friend from those days, we're still very good friends to this day. He lives in Ontario now, and anytime we can see them, we do. They were here visiting us in Whitefish a few years ago. Prior to that, we saw them and their kids in Ottawa. So, and we keep in touch. My dad has since moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and if you're not going to stay in Newfoundland and work, you kind of get off the island and go to the mainland, and Halifax would be the largest sort of city. So quite a few people are there, interestingly. So when I go see my dad, I usually try and reach out to one of them and say hi at least. But we're always still quite friendly. Some of them aren't playing golf anymore for various reasons. Some are, but just really thinking of them fondly.
I laugh, still laughing about the 15-minute summer. It's longer in Montana. I don't know. It seems longer. I think people have figured it out. Like maybe 30 years ago, people didn't know it was so great there, but they figured it out now.
Yeah. And here, I mean, I say that, but we really are spectacular here from June 15th, pretty much through September. These last few years, September's probably the best month of the year here overall. And yeah, but in Newfoundland, it was golfing. It was, you might get greens open early June. Now you could play till the end of October, but you were wearing everything you owned. But still, great summers. But that's the first place I heard the phrase that summer was an afternoon in August.
One of the things you brought up Whitefish, and many things you and I have talked about, and we can certainly come back to this or backtrack because I definitely want to hear about Brad Lardon as one of your mentors. But I think one of the things you told me that was so interesting about working at Iron Horse is that you have such a diverse group of people and political views and styles of thinking, but yet they all bond on sort of this idea. And you were like, we should get everybody a T-shirt that says, "What did you do for fun today?" as sort of like the opener. And I just thought, what a clever open-ended question.
Yeah, and I think it here, hopefully, it supersedes things like politics, right? Yeah, 40% of our membership or so comes from Texas. That their home is in Texas. About another 40% is from California. I would say about another 10. I think it's about close to 10 is from north of the border, mainly Calgary, and then the other 10%, spread out. And I think my dad would be proud of that math. And
I was going to say you're into Yogi Berra land, but you stopped. You got it right.
It's nice that I can speak the language of the guys from up north. But so that's a very diverse sort of political climate potentially, right? So you sort of sit, you watch members mingle, and even if they're not in each other's sort of friend group per se, you see them mingling, and you think to yourself, what are they talking about? And often the common thread is somebody is telling a story about what they did today. In many ways, our members, I think, try and participate in a decathlon here every day where they're playing golf and pickleball and hiking and biking and fishing and boating, and it's just an amazing thing. So that's what they have in common. And someday I think here I'm hoping to have pull the trigger on doing a club t-shirt or something. We have t-shirts, but doing one that might say, "What did you do today?" on there, because that's sort of if we have a thread or a motto, that might be it.
Yeah, actually, I mean, in some ways, yeah, the club motto, yeah, at Iron Horse, what did you do for fun? The key is for fun today. What did you do for fun? Yeah, and it is a really great. I mean, honestly, I mean, I realize Whitefish is a unique place where you named 15 items potentially, 15 variations of those things, and there's probably another 10 that you didn't mention, and in the average place, there's not all those options. That's what makes Whitefish special. But even at the sort of average median club, there's probably that question would still make sense. What a great way to sort of settle it down. I also think that the clever point of that question is just like, what do we have in common? Let's talk about what we have in common, not what separates us.
Yeah, and I'm just, as you were talking about that, I think I just had this. I saw this happen yesterday. So two of our board members were here, and I heard them chatting in the golf shop about what do you want to do for lunch, and we know the affluency of our member group, so they can really do anything they want. They chose the Bulldog downtown Whitefish because they like the burger. For anybody that's been to the Bulldog, they know what I'm talking about, but it's not somewhere you might expect one of our members to roll into. But I think people come to Whitefish, including our members, just to take in the town and be a part of it. Iron Horse is just one aspect of their Flathead experience, and I think that makes it really cool.
Yeah, it's a great place to visit. I have been there, not playing golf, like 2 or 3 different times where I've literally been in there like October 17th, October 20th, going through a loop through Montana. And the only place that was actually cold was going between Great Falls and Columbia Falls, up over the mountain there. And that was like 40s. And it was like, okay, it's blowing hard, windy. You could tell that, okay, eventually winter wins here. But like your area, Kalispell, Big Fork, it was like, I'm such an idiot. I mean, because I flew into Bozeman and I did a loop through a little bit of Rocky Mountain section and one year, and I just remember thinking, and it was like 72 degrees on a Saturday in Missoula, and it was hot, genuinely hot. It felt like, and I was remember, I am an idiot. I don't know. Um, so, obviously, before you came to Montana, when you were telling the story about the 15-minute summer and your connection, I know you had a great connection to some of the members at Iron Horse through your experience in Texas, but did that 15-minute summer comment come up in the interview? Because Could have put you and the committee at ease in that interview.
Yeah, it's certainly a discussion of how are you going to handle winter. So the fact that I'd lived it up till 24 years old, and and did it as a golf professional early in my career, and kind of how do you deal with the seasonality and all of that.
You said it's actually going to be warmer here.
Yeah. But then I had 18 years in the southern US, so it was a legitimate question. But then the natural follow-up, which I would probably ask too, is, so tell me what your wife's going to think about that. And as we sit today, I really like it here. She loves it here. She has just fallen in love with all that there is to Montana, the different temperatures, the different seasons. So yeah, we were able to put them at ease pretty quickly with those answers.
So you mentioned a little segue from me. You mentioned your early career. So you got your start in Canadian PGA circles.
Yeah. So I was started to work at a club. I'd worked at Nevada Bob's golf stores while I was in my first stint in college, which
It will be younger people who listen to this and literally do not recall ever seeing Nevada Bob's.
Yeah. So this is where you are working at a golf store where you learn to string a tennis racket. So these are good days. This is where you learn to do the full set of regrips in about 12 minutes while the gentleman waits. These are skills that are hard to earn today because they're just not those opportunities anymore.
I think that's why some of the older golf professionals who've been involved in that also love those pants pressed while you wait.
Yeah.
those old pictures.
Exactly. I'm picturing some Sansa belts right now, but that's a different topic. So 2 different Nevada Bob stores while I was going to university in Ontario. And then I decided I wasn't fully invested in business schools I thought I should be, and going into debt for no reason. And my mom at the time was buying a house back in my old hometown, and near there is a college. And at the time in Canada, there were 5 PGM schools, and they were at these colleges. I use the term university and college differently because they are different in Canada. College is kind of like a 3-year program, so it's almost like a hybrid of a 4-year university here and a 2-year community college. And they're mainly trade schools, but that's happened to be where PGM was. It was a diploma in business administration. So anyway, I went and did that. Requires 2 internships, so I got to work at a club in outside of Toronto called Credit Valley, and just had an awesome shop experience there. Very busy club. I ended up doing it for 3 seasons, and even after I graduated. But I had a friend in college who would always do his internships in Charleston, South Carolina, or near there, because he had an older cousin who lived there and was from there. And he, a couple of times they invited me on some trips. So I went, wouldn't you, during spring break or what have you, and just met his family, and they invited me, said, in conversation one day, if you ever wanted to work here, we'd rent you a room here for really cheap. You can stay with us till you kind of get on your feet and do your thing. So the barrier to entry there dropped a lot. So now it's a matter of the job. So I just kind of kept pestering Steve Kelleher, who was the head pro at the River Course. I pestered some others too, but Steve was the one, I guess, who was weak enough to keep talking to me. And after pestering him enough, he took a chance on a Canadian no-name, started working there in October of 2001. 7 years there, grew to be the senior assistant there. Now, I'm going to come back to your question, because I was in the apprenticeship program, what it was called at the time, with the PGA of Canada. And because of the job opportunity at Keo Island at River Course, I decided to leave and take that and live in Charleston. I was only a season away in Ontario from finishing my apprenticeship with the Canadian PGA. Nothing you do as an associate in either association counts toward the other one, or at least it didn't at that time. However, once you're a Class A in one, there was a reciprocity program to become a Class A in the other. So Steve and I discussed it and thought, you know what, it might be best if I just went back to Canada for 6 months, worked a season. This is in 2003, and raced through, finish my apprenticeship, finish the Class A, become elected to membership in Canada, and then I could apply here. So in fall of 03, I became a member of the Canadian PGA, went through the program, went through the process of reciprocal, got a little delayed with some hurricanes and things in Port St. Lucie, Florida. It's a whole other story. But anyway, February of 2025, became a member of the PGA of America, and still hold both memberships today. And then all the way to 2008, worked at Kiowa, and then I met a girl. The short version of that story is she was already leaving Charleston to go be take her PhD at Texas A&M, and ultimately and luckily, amazingly, found a job there as first assistant at Miramont Country Club, working for Brad Lardon, as you mentioned, and that was the reason for the move to Texas.
And I hear good things about that
Yeah,
girl
yeah,
from you.
yeah. She's still putting up with. I chased her, and I guess she's still putting up with me. So yeah, it's great.
I say it sometimes. I chased my wife, but I've still never caught her. I've got part of like her garment, so I won't let her get away. But they and you know, is she still a professor?
Currently working at Angelo State University in Texas. Position is mainly online. She's really good at online education. Has been doing it a long time, since the early days of them doing it at Texas A&M, and likes it. Really good at engaging with students. She's really smart. Not sure what she's doing with me, but she's very, very smart.
But getting back to the Canadian thing, I've interacted with you at a pretty solid level, and then another Canadian PGA member, Mike O'Donnell, who is, you know, sort of learned his craft over at Shaughnessy in the, you know, BC area, and then you and Dougal, and like, that's three pretty great representatives of what the Canadian PGA can produce, honestly, in terms of quality golf professionals who really know how to operate. And Mike has told me some stories. The other thing too is, I know the joke about the 15-minute summer is the amount of engagement that happens at clubs in Canada is embarrassingly good. And just some of what people don't hear. It's crazy.
Yeah, I remember a statistic that there was a time where the Canadian golfer per capita played more rounds of golf than any other country's golfer in the world. And you think, well, that seems ridiculous given the season. But then I think about it, and I would use my dad. So for the times that my dad had a season membership or seasons pass, he's got the math figured out, right? This is what I need. This is the number of rounds I need to play to make my joining this thing worthwhile in the beginning. It could be sleeting and 31 degrees. He's going to play golf because he can't handle the 6 months of winter stewing on the idea that he didn't get his value out of his membership.
Yeah.
So he's going to play. And for my time in the Southern US, I saw the exact opposite. It was like, well, okay, it's kind of thinking about raining today. I don't need to deal with that. I'll just play tomorrow.
Yeah.
So there becomes this more leisurely aspect to it where, or just in my dad's case and others, it's mandatory in Canada that you get your round count in.
What's interesting is that actually, too, in my experience, that with men, you mentioned your Canadian math or whatever. He said it's 100. It's 100, and so it's like, oh, it's for simplicity. What did it cost me? It cost me $4,000 to play. Okay, I need 100 starts, not 100 rounds. I need 100 starts, and every time I had one member who was similar to your dad, where he basically said, every time I come play and I don't get into my wallet to play golf, it makes the original wallet reach cheaper. Like, interesting way of saying that. And yeah, and he was like, I don't care if and at the time, this guy commuted from like 90 minutes away because he loved the golf course. He loved what we did. And he would show up at like 1:30 in the afternoon, and he was like, I don't care if I get in 13 holes or 36 holes, like, depending on, his name was Dave, and he would just fly around. I mean, it'd be like him driving from East Missoula to come play golf at, you know, maybe not East Missoula. So at Frenchtown, he's a member at Iron Horse. Lives in Frenchtown. And your place is great enough, so there might be somebody that literally does that. I don't know.
It brings me back to my first job was at a golf course. Was working outside at a public course in Ontario, and it was in north of the city. So maybe, yeah, it would take you probably 70 to 90 minutes, depending on traffic, to get up there. And we had a member would come up every Saturday and every Sunday morning to play, and we'd go greet him in the parking lot, and was kind of a running joke, but very nice man. And he would get out of the car and he'd already have his glove on. And we used to always say, okay, at what point did this glove go on? Did it go on before he left the house? Did it go on? He gets set past a certain exit, and then it's like, okay, ready to roll here. Did he do it on the drive in? We're not sure, but at some point the glove came on. He's so excited. Or now that I'm older, getting older, maybe he just did it so he wouldn't forget his glove. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And, or the only thing you think about is like, when did he put this glove on, and what has he done with this glove that's not golf related?
But he's just driving along with the glove on, and you just love those guys.
Yeah. What?
Golfer. We got a golfer.
You mentioned a guy named Steve Kelleher. What did you learn from him? What was like one takeaway? I'm going to ask you the same question about Brad, but what was one takeaway that you got from Steve, other than the fact that he took a chance on you and gave you a shot?
Yeah, that for sure. Lots from Steve, but if I'm nailing it down to one, I hear his voice daily. It still never fails. Never assume. For example, if you're in tournament operations, I don't care if you think you've set up the software perfectly. If you looked at it 15 times, there's just things that happen, and certain box didn't get checked, or it did get checked and it's still not working. So whatever you produce, especially before it goes out to the membership, never assume it's correct. Always double check it. Always have another set of eyes double check it. That can be a set of eyes that might be in the hierarchy above you, your peer, or below you. It doesn't matter. Just get a second set of eyes on this, because that second set will see things that you don't see. And it was daily, just a daily reminder from him. If he had 5 fundamentals in life, I would think that would have been one of them.
Maybe never assume was number 1 and number 5. There's like a bookend. So that's a great one. That's a great takeaway. What about Brad? And then also maybe tell us about Brad, how you started to work for, or went to work for Brad, and then kind of what you learned as you went through that process. Because I know you worked for a while for him, and you worked at different facilities.
Brad, I worked for at Miramont Country Club, as I mentioned. And Brad has a very interesting background, and it kind of brings him to who he is. So he was a very good player at Rice University, went on to try his hand at the PGA Tour, made it on again, off again, different tours, but had a nice, successful playing career, and then ultimately decided, as he was getting older and having a young family, to try and stay home more and become a club professional. In doing so, he could have gone the route of an A3 into a different membership, but felt like he was going to be way behind in terms of the PGA education and things like that. So he went and did his own education anyway. If I recall, I think it's the business schools back then. But so Brad has this really interesting, background that brings him to our business. And his perspective is certainly that, this business is about, we can have all the skills in the world and all the awesome facilities in the world, but it's really about people. So in those 2 years at Miramont, his superpower, he just won golf professional of the year in Sun Country. And I happen to say it in his tribute video that, his superpower is just that he can, for those who are around him, he always has your back for you. It might mean he has to have a tough conversation with you. It might mean he's being your cheerleader. It might mean he's advocating you to others, but he always generally has your back as one of his people. And that was the best takeaway, because it really has served me well since, as I've been lucky enough to elevate in my career. And then you have the responsibility and of so many folks are in your employees in your care, to show them that I have their back for them and they can trust me. If you have that trust, you can kind of do anything. It's been really cool to receive that and then be able to pass that on.
That is I know you and I've talked about this kind of stuff a lot, and we did it in the real mentoring sort of panel. And I don't know that you used those phrasing, but I think that's such a really powerful phrase. It always has your back, comma, for you. And it's important. That comma is important because my dad is one of those people who is a wordsmith type. If both my parents are amazing writers, communicators, so I probably benefit from that. But the value, and you mentioned that sort of, I know you've heard me say this, and you learned it from Brad. It's like, it's actually the proof in how much I value you is how much I'm willing to go have that hard conversation, because it means you're worth it to me. as opposed to, I think of numerous people I've interacted with and been a leader for when I was a younger person. And I'm not proud of this. I'm sort of chagrined about my behavior. But when I was kind of done with them because they were an immature high school kid, I was done with them. I didn't give them a chance to grow. I say this sort of funny, but I backspaced them out of my life. My backspaced them out of the schedule. And I'm not proud of that. But the idea is now it's like if I would take that young person out on a cart ride to have a hard conversation, like my version of Brad Lardon did for me many times, I'm just showing you I care. I care about you and I want you to be successful.
Yeah, and I think you learn, I think when in the mentoring conversation you called it reverse mentoring, and I think there's also these negative mentoring experiences that teach us a lot, right? And we can be on both ends of those. So I certainly have, a lot of experiences that I could put on paper where I look back and go, I did not do my best job in mentoring that person. I did care about them, but I probably didn't show it to them to where they felt the trust in me.
Yeah.
And then I've been on the receiving end of that where the mentoring experience, might not be as good. So, but yeah, Brad is instrumental in my life and career and taught me some lessons early on and will remind me of them from time to time. With conversation, which I need. He was really helpful.